Hayao Miyazaki is honestly hysterical because he has succeeded at almost everything he set out to do in life except retire. Born January 5th, 1941 in Tokyo City, he was born amidst the war, with him saying his earliest memories are full of bombed-out cities. Due to this, his family had to evacuate to Utsunomiya, and during that time when he was a small child, Miyazaki was told he had severe digestive issues and wouldn't likely survive past the age of 20. This resulted in him facing severe bullying and having to be protected by his older brother. During this time, his mother was also severely bedridden as she was suffering from tuberculosis. This detail would go on to inspire his films, as his mother was an extremely strong presence in his life as she constantly questioned social norms and encouraged him to do the same. While in high school, Miyazaki snuck out from studying for his entrance exams and went to see the very first Japanese animated feature film that was in full color, The White Snake Enchantress. He said that he fell in love with the film's heroine and was moved to tears, and it left a deep and profound impact on him and made him want to pursue art. It said it also awakened a part of him that yearned desperately to affirm the world instead of negate it. Despite this, he still went and attended college at Gakushuin University, where he majored in political studies, and ended up graduating with his degree in political science and economics. Despite his degree having nothing to do with it, though, he did decide to pursue his passion for animation and became an in-between artist at Toei Animation in 1963. While at Toei Animation, he met his wife, Akemi Ota, who ironically had worked as an in-between artist on the film that had inspired him in the first place, which I just find really romantic. But anyway, while he was at Toei Animation, he did do in-between art for several other films, but began to question whether he was cut out for this line of work. But then he went to a filming of The Snow Queen in 1964, which caused him to feel renewed determination for this art form. He then worked his way up at Toei Animation to key animator and was given the opportunity to work on The Great Adventure of Horace, Prince of the Sun, where he was the chief animator and scene designer. The film received critical acclaim, but didn't make much money for Toei Animation, and that put them in a bind. Oh, and while at Toei, he also led a union strike against them. Yeah, apparently he was a big player in this and was an inspiring force, which kind of tracks for the rest of his life, honestly. He then moved to the studio A-Pro, where he was given his directorial debut, Lupin III, a TV series where he directed several episodes. After this, he then wanted to pursue an adaptation of Pippi Longstocking, and was given permission to fly to Sweden to secure the rights for the movie. He did not end up securing the rights, but this was his first trip internationally where he traveled to Sweden, and he was greatly moved by it, and once again, this goes on to really impact his career. He continued to work, and relatively soon after this, he moved to the feature animation studio, where he was given the opportunity for his feature animation directorial debut, Lupin III, The Castle of Cagliostro. This film became critically beloved. Right after this, though, Miyazaki couldn't get his desired adaptation of Ralph approved, and so he began to write a manga instead, which became Nausicaa Valley of the Wind. Originally, they wanted to turn this into a quick little 15-minute short, but Miyazaki insisted that it needed to be feature-length, and they finally persisted and allowed that to be greenlit. While working on the film adaptation, Joe Hisaishi was brought on to do the score for the film, which became one of many that he does from Miyazaki during his career, going on to, in fact, to do the score for every single Miyazaki film henceforth. This film became Miyazaki's pivotal work and put him onto the national frame, really making sure that he was known as a well-respected animator. It made a ton of money, was critically acclaimed, and was beloved. And with the money Miyazaki made with Valley of the Wind, he went and made Studio Ghibli, the thing we all know and love him for. Named after a nickname of an Italian aircraft, which means a hot wind that blows in the desert. Supposedly, he just really liked the way the name sounded. In 1986, they released their very first film, Castle in the Sky, under the Studio Ghibli banner. He was inspired to do this film after a trip to Wales. But then next came Miyazaki's big one, My Neighbor Totoro. He had originally pitched this all the way back in 1980, and he had been completely rejected. But he was insistent this idea would work, though everybody else was very skeptical. It was due to this skepticism that they decided to release it as a double feature alongside Grave of the Fireflies, the other film that Studio Ghibli had in production. Which turned out to be a good thing because people really needed the emotional support after seeing this film. Totoro was greatly inspired by Miyazaki's childhood as well as his mother. And while the film did receive critical acclaim, it was only moderately successful at the box office. That is until 1990 when they finally started to merchandise for it. This changed the game. They were able to make money off of Totoro for years to come. It financed the studio for decades. Even to this day, the studio receives a ton of money from the merchandise sold from Totoro, which I am guilty of as well. After this, the studio had their first major international success, which was Kiki's Delivery Service in 1989, and this became Japan's highest-grossing film of that year. And Hayao Miyazaki made several other films, such as Porco Rosso, but Princess Mononoke was a pivotal one because it really brought them into the spotlight again, globally this time, making them very popular in Europe, all of Asia, and America. And this is where it gets really funny, because Hayao Miyazaki intended for this to be his final film at the company. After the film's release, Miyazaki built his retirement house, which he refers to as the Pig House, and threw a party here January 14th of 1998. He did fully retire on that day, but the person who was set to inherit the role from him, Yoshifumi Kondo, happened to pass away exactly a week later on January 20th, 1998. This unfortunately forced Miyazaki to come immediately out of retirement to produce their next film. This film was none other than Spirited Away, which once again, we set another record. It even became the very first Japanese animated film to win an Oscar for Best Animated Feature, made a ton of money, and put the studio even further on the map. But once again, Miyazaki said, I'm gonna retire this time, right? Wrong. Unfortunately, right after that film was released, his great friend and one of the main executive producers on Studio Ghibli films, Yasuyoshi Tokuma, passed away. This caused a lot of grief for Miyazaki, and this inspired him to continue making films once again. And that grief, along with his anger at the invasion of the US and Iraq, caused him to make Howl's Moving Castle. Once again, huge film, made a ton of money, critically acclaimed, beloved, and is my personal favorite. He had announced he planned to retire after this film once again, but he did not, continuing to work until 2013, where he then announced he was actually retiring due to his age, right? Wrong. You see, he did actually retire that time, but began working on this movie independently. The Boy and the Heron. In fact, he didn't even wait for studio approval. He just started working on the movie and went to them and said, this is our next movie, guys. Once again, major success. Won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature again, being the oldest recipient of this award, as well as being the only director to win it twice, because he won it for Spirited Away before, and now he's won it with Boy and the Heron. But okay, this time he's really retiring, right? Wrong. The director of Studio Ghibli said immediately after this film was released, he kept coming in every single day to work, saying he wanted to start planning their next project, saying he has been inspired by current events to continue working. They said they have tried to convince him to retire, this is a genuine quote, but that they have just kind of given up on that. As apparently he does express dissatisfaction almost daily, that saying he is too old for this and wishes he could retire. He is currently 85 years old, so only time will tell how many movies he'll get to make before he officially retires.